Good morning, everyone. 2 months ago, I stood before the General Assembly and Tennesseans and delivered a State of the State address in a day where the coronavirus had not entered Tennessee. We hadn't had a tornado. We were in a very different day when I delivered that State of the State address. But I made remarks toward the end of those comments, and I want to remind us of something I said then. This was a quote from my State of the State. History remembers fondly when leaders do the right thing, especially when it's hard, and especially when the politics of the day don't offer any rewards. And my hope is that history records that we were leaders who worked together, who stood firm in our individual convictions, but who remembered that differences should not divide us. I sat in the House chamber, in the gallery of the House chambers last night, and I sat in the gallery of the Senate chamber last night, and I witnessed that very thing happen. Leaders coming together, doing the right thing, even though it was hard, and even though it didn't offer a lot of political reward, because it was the right thing to do for Tennessee. I'm standing on the stage with leaders of the General Assembly who did that, who represent members of the General Assembly who did just that, and I am very grateful and very proud for how we, in just a very short period of time, have come together and made very difficult decisions, many of them disappointing, setting aside pieces of legislation that were incredibly important to members in both chambers, but knowing that that agenda needed to be set aside, even if for a time like this. We have done what I believe is in the best interest of every Tennessean, and that is to continue this state on a course that will provide fiscal stability for Tennessee as it faces potentially an incredibly difficult economic time. We don't know what lies ahead, but we do know that we have a responsibility to prepare for what lies ahead. And I feel certain that that's what's happening every day through state government, through the General Assembly, through the leadership, and I am proud to have been a part of that. We have much work to do ahead. We did set aside but hold in place the agenda that we will take up in the future. But for now, we've done what was right for Tennessee, and I'm proud. And I want to let leaders speak to that as well. Lieutenant Governor?
Thank you, Governor. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a very difficult time for Tennessee, but I want to point out the fiscal stability that the state has had over the years, and it's through leadership by Democrat and Republican governors, Governor Bredesen, Governor Haslam, Governor Lee, people like Doug Henry, and people like John Bragg, who built the foundation that enables us to weather the storms that come. I know each time when I give a talk about the budget, I talk about, the last thing I talk about is the Black Swan event. Something that we don't know that will come, but usually we have to be prepared for, or always we have to be prepared for it. And unfortunately, this year we had two, with the tornado and the COVID virus. But I very much appreciate during this session, as well as other sessions, the cooperation that we received from Cameron and House leadership and the Senate leadership, Senator Johnson and Senator Yeager and others on various committees, as well as our Democrat colleagues. It was a time in which we came together and hopefully have addressed the immediate problem, and as well as got a plan going forward to address whatever comes our way. We've got a very substantial rainy day fund, and we're putting more money in it, where we'll have almost 10% of the general fund will be in the rainy day fund. But I want to thank you all for the job that you do, and I very much appreciate the interest and diligence of the press that's here. Thank you. And it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague and a good friend, Cameron Sexton, who leads the House and took it at a very difficult time and has led it through an even more difficult time, and done it with great leadership ability. Cameron.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you, Governor. And what I will say is 2 weeks ago when we were in session, we didn't know what it was going to look like. We thought we would still be here till we finished up, usually at the end of April, early May. What I will tell you is what's happened over 5 days in the General Assembly with the administration to prepare a budget that protects Tennesseans, that helps Tennesseans, where both sides of the aisle came together for the benefit of all Tennesseans, was an amazing thing for us to accomplish in 5 days. These are troubling times and unprecedented times. Our greatest generation has made sacrifices for us over the years, and in the days ahead, we as Tennesseans are going to have to sacrifice even more and make some very tough decisions. Making those tough decisions will help protect us now in our communities, as well as protecting our greatest and most vulnerable generation. We have the right leadership in place to handle this crisis, even in the darkest days, whether those days are still before us or in the days ahead. There will always be a light that's shining through, to know that when we're through this as Tennesseans, we will regroup, rally, and sacrifice to make our state even better than it was when we entered in. This budget that we passed put a lot of money for those times ahead of us, so when we come back in, we can reassess the needs of the state of Tennessee and help in any way that we can. Also, in the days ahead, I know that Tennesseans are looking for what's going to happen. And let me just tell you, I know the governor is working diligently with the General Assembly, with his administration, to help with things like personal protective equipment, to help with how to handle the uninsured people of the state of Tennessee, how to help small businesses get back on their feet, how to help Tennesseans in general to get through this crisis to where we land on our feet when we come through it. I'm confident that we have the right governor, the right administration, and the right leadership in our state to get us through this time. And when we do, we had a conservative General Assembly who decided not to spend today, but give some money to help the governor in these difficult times, to help with public health, to help with education, to help with mental health, to help in a lot of areas, to help with cities and counties to get back up on their feet. We have the resources to help them now, but we have a lot of resources to help in the next few months when we come out of this. It was an honor to work with the Lieutenant Governor and the House leadership, and to work with the governor and his administration. And with that, I will turn it over to Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Governor, Leader Lamberth, Lieutenant Governor. I said last night on the floor, I also said it in Senate committee, that You know, I'm not happy. I don't think any of us are with what's going on in our state right now with the tornado, with the coronavirus. Tennesseans are scared, and they have every right to be. But I tell you what I am happy about. I am happy about the fact that the governor and his administration, the General Assembly, was able to come together in a very brief period of time and set everything we came into session planning to work on to the side and focus on the matters at hand, critical matters at hand. And that's what we did. My, what a couple of weeks difference it makes from where we were just a short time ago. It's our job to make sure that the administration and state government can function and perform critical functions for the people of Tennessee for the coming fiscal year. And that's what we accomplished in the last 5 days. We had to set that bold agenda that the governor proposed in his State of the State. We had to set that agenda aside. We had to set aside the agenda of all of our fellow members who come into every legislative session with good public policy ideas that they want to focus on. And we had to set all of that aside and focus on the matters at hand, and that's what we did. And I'm confident that we've equipped the governor and his administration. As we go home, we go back to our districts, we've equipped the governor with the necessary tools and the necessary resources to address the knowns and the unknowns that are going to face us in the coming months. I take great pride and pleasure in the fact that when we put that budget up on the board to vote last night, we got a unanimous vote. Democrats and Republicans came together and passed a budget unanimously that none of us were very happy about, but it's a good budget, and it's one that addresses the needs of today and the coming weeks, and it also sets aside money for the future, which is equally as important, because we don't know what this is going to do to our economy, to our revenues, and so we needed to take as conservative an approach as possible, and that's what we did. We will be back. We have recessed until June 1st, and I hope that we're able to come back at that time and to continue to address needs that arise between now and then, as well as resume consideration of some of our bold public policy ideas for the people of Tennessee. So I want to commend my fellow senators and thank them for their hard work. We put in a lot of long days, long hours over the last several days to get this done. I want to thank my friends in the House for their hard work, and the legislative process worked. It's not pretty sometimes, but it works, and we get the job done for the people of Tennessee. And so the last thing I will say is I will encourage people, everyone who's watching, to practice social distancing and wash your hands. We will get through this, and we will continue to be the great state of Tennessee for many years to come. I'm going to turn it over now to my friend and colleague, House Majority Leader William Lamberth.
Thank y'all for allowing us to just share a little bit of news with you today and address you. And I want to, before I begin, recognize Chairman Mike Stewart, who is here in the crowd today. As the Democratic chairman in the House, you know, we've had some pretty good differences of opinion on policy. But over the last few days and weeks, I'm so very proud that on the House floor and in the Senate chamber as well, Republicans and Democrats alike have come together to meet the needs of Tennesseans right now. Everybody on this stage today has talked about how much has been done to place an agenda on policy in park for right now, and that we're going to recess until June 1st. I had tried to prepare some remarks for today and thought about it on the drive in, and nothing that I wrote down really met the gravity of what we're facing right now. We don't know what the next few weeks or even months are going to bring, but I promise you this, as our fellow Tennesseans, I can guarantee you that we in the legislature and with our governor, whom we trust explicitly in this circumstance to help lead us through this, will arise from whatever comes in the next few weeks and months, and together we will push forward. We have been ready for this. We have led for a time such as this. We never could have imagined that this would occur. But hang in there, be with your families, focus on your communities, and focus on your faith. In our family, we pray every night, and my son's 8 years old, and it breaks my heart that he prays every night that he'll be protected from the coronavirus. words that he never should have even known existed. And in each of your families, I know that that happens as well. I place my faith in God, and quite frankly, today, we have all placed our faith in our Governor, Bill Lee. And I want to thank him for his leadership during this time, and I want to thank both of our speakers and my colleague Jack Johnson in the Senate for their leadership. And again, Tennesseans, we merely ask that you follow the directions of our medical experts during this time, because we will get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Thank you, all the leaders on this stage. Thank you, Tennesseans, for giving us the opportunity to stand in the places that we stand, but I thank you as well for responding in the way that Tennesseans have. We saw it happen a few weeks ago with the tornado, where the eyes of the nation saw how Tennesseans are unique and how they step up and how they respond to challenges like others may not. We have that opportunity again. And the reason that I feel confident is because we've seen it time and time again, because we're Tennesseans, and that's what we do. That's why individuals will own responsibility for their own behavior, responsible behavior. It's why companies will step up and follow guidance and suggestions. It's why businesses will do the right thing to make sure that their neighbors are safe. It's why churches will engage in their communities to protect the elderly and to assist their neighbors who have lost a job or suddenly need child care. We in state government and in local governments, in municipalities and counties all across the state, we will do what we can to provide an environment where Tennesseans can thrive. And then I feel confident and certain that Tennesseans will do just that. We will continue our updates on coronavirus and on the impacts that it's having and the economic impacts. We've had daily press briefings on that, and we will continue to provide information, because the press provides information to the people. And that is a process that is critical and that will be very important as we move forward and mitigate the spread of this disease and mitigate the economic impacts of the spread of COVID-19. So thank you all for being here. Particularly grateful for leadership, not only what they have done, but what they will continue to do in the days ahead. As has been said, our work has only just begun in addressing some of these greatest challenges, and we will all be working together with all Tennesseans to make sure that we move forward through this crisis. So happy to take your questions.
Governor, I have a two-part question. You're kind enough to answer each one individually. Both have to do with personal responsibility. There are several churches that are going to meet Sunday, some of them with elderly populations. I know you're a man of faith, that's why I'm very clear about that, but how do you feel about that? Is that responsible? And the second thing, I had a chance to just visit with some Kroger cashiers, and some of the stories are just unbelievable. $665 of meat, 32 jars of peanut butter. People really almost creating scarcity just in what they're doing. All like you said, maybe Tennesseans are doing the right thing, addressing people who are not particularly active.
Yep. I talked to, I'll answer your second question first. And for those who couldn't hear, the question was about gatherings and specifically churches and grocery stores and people who panic buy and hoard. I talked to the head of the Grocers Association in our state, and we talked about the food supply. And he and grocers all across Tennessee have assured me and us that we have a stable and secure food supply chain. There is a food supply chain, there is a stability to that and a certainty around that. But the one thing that does disrupt that, even if it's temporarily and even if it creates a real challenge for the people who have to live with that temporary disruption, the thing that disrupts it is panic buying and hoarding and inappropriate behavior around the food chain. And where that happens, we need to bring that to light. You know, I'm a strong believer that people generally will want to do the right thing in these settings. We need to remind people. Oftentimes, they just don't think through that their individual behavior may in fact cost someone else their life And that's the reality of what we're dealing with here. So churches that continue to meet and gather with elderly and putting groups of people in the same setting, quite frankly, they're risking people's lives. And there are ways to worship and there are ways to serve without congregating people. And I'm urging and challenging churches to do just that, because I do believe that anytime any business, any organization, any individual creates environments where people are congregating in big numbers, they're putting people's lives at risk. And we need to continue to get that message out there. We need to continue to remind Tennesseans that the only way we will do this is if we do this all together. I've been generally encouraged with behavior change, and as we see that happen across Tennessee, we need to encourage it. Where we see it not happening, we need to bring it to light.
Governor Lee, you've asked schools to close. What about daycares? Because those workers may be in some of the same concerns as teachers.
Yeah, so I'm talking to governors all across the state all across the country about how they're dealing with daycare. And when a school closes, we have real serious daycare issues. We're working with daycare centers. As you know, we announced the other day that we're pushing out through our Department of Human Services $10 million to assist daycare facilities that we currently are in contact with and that we have a connection to, that we oversee from the Department of Human Services. We are pushing $10 million out to those daycare centers to address the challenges that they face. So it's important that daycare centers, determine ways to keep children in groups of 10. We're actually talking to officials about utilizing schools for daycare centers in a way that we can limit the number of children in a classroom and not have children congregate, but provide opportunity for parents to continue to go to work. It's a real crisis for people who suddenly find children at home when they both work, or if it's a single parent and they're off working. We're also working with the faith community and I have said before, and through our Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives, we're imploring churches to adopt a school that's closed, if it's in your community, and to work with the parents and the families in those schools to assist in directing children to appropriate daycare that will provide safety and security for the kids, but at the same time, safety from the disease through social distancing. So it's a big topic across this country, and we're working to address it.
You're using your authority as governor to implore people and cease them to do these things. But for example, churches and other things, at what point could it become necessary for you to step in and say, no gatherings over X amount of people?
Yeah, so we're never going to be able to mandate people's behavior in their homes and in their yards and in their neighborhoods. Because you never can enforce behavior that you mandate. But nothing is ever off the table. I think we all know that. We don't know what's coming. We don't know the enormity of this crisis. There are decisions that we make today that we might not have made a week ago, and there may be decisions that we make in 2 weeks that we wouldn't make today. And I will say this too, there is a right time to make decisions. That's the real difficulty in discernment. But I believe to the degree that we can curb behavior and change behavior and find responsible behavior taking place across our state, to the degree that we can do that without mandates, it's better for everyone. So that's going to be our approach. When people don't respond to mandates, then obviously they force officials to consider other options. But there's a real balance between preserving the economy and not the economy. When we talk about the economy, we're talking about people who don't get a paycheck because their restaurant closes. my daughter works in a restaurant that closed. She lost her job, which for her, she's a single, she has a lot of resources to support, family support, to take care of her. But she also reminded me of two workers in her restaurant, a married couple who have 4 children, and the day that restaurant closed, they both lost their jobs. And they're in a very difficult position today because of the closure of that restaurant. Now, every day that we can keep a business open and that business accepts the responsibility of appropriate social distancing and protecting their employees from the spread of this disease, every day that we can do that, we strike the right balance between preserving the economy to the degree that we can and protecting our citizens from this disease. And that's the efforts that we're going to be making going forward. Joel.
Governor, yesterday the New York Times reported the Trump administration has apparently asked states to stop sharing unemployment data for fear of freaking out the markets. Your administration has continued to share that at least this week. Will you comply with that request?
Yeah, I haven't, the president hasn't made that request of me or our administration, so, I'd be happy to look into that, but I think unemployment data can be helpful for a number of reasons, so we haven't had that conversations, but.
Will you block that if that is asked of you?
Well, I always, if someone's going to ask me something, I kind of want to know why they're asking me to do it and what the reasoning behind that is, and I'm always willing to listen to reasons for doing things. So I want to listen. If the Trump administration is requesting us to do something, there may be likely a very valid reason for that, but we'll have those conversations.
Governor, your recent executive order eliminates the waiting period for unemployment benefit and also allows people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 to qualify even if they're going to go back to work. But I'm wondering, what else can the state do to help these people in the long term, especially those people in the service industry that lost their jobs and may not know when they're going to come back?
Well, there are unemployment benefits, as you say. There is temporary assistance for needy families. We have raised the threshold of we've raised the threshold of the amount of money that a family can earn and still receive TANF funding. That is in assistance to the traditional TANF funding that is underway. We're working with the federal government to loosen the restrictions and the regulations around SNAP benefits, which are a supplemental nutrition assistance program for needy families. We are providing small business loans for small companies that employ many of these workers that we want to keep from losing their jobs. Those business loans are up to $2 million per business. And by the way, they apply for nonprofits as well, because we need our nonprofits to be out there doing the work that they're doing. We have, in this approved budget that the legislature passed, we've pushed $200 million out through a grant process to every county in Tennessee and to every municipality in Tennessee. So those $200 million will be able to be used for targeted relief programs in individual cities and counties, because we know that what's happening in Giles County is really different than what's happening in Shelby County, and so the needs there are different, and those individual leaders can make decisions about relief for their folks. And there is a federal package of relief that is making its way through Congress that will be substantial. Governors are advocating for block grants with regard to that relief. Now, whether it'll come that way or not, we're certainly asking for it, because we want to have as much flexibility as possible around the billions of dollars that will be flowing to states. Those are a number of things that we're going to be doing to try to alleviate the economic impacts. And the conversation we had just a minute ago about balancing that closure of businesses with mitigation of the spread of the disease, that's something we're working really hard to keep as many people as we can employed for as long as we can, and at the same time keep our public safe. I have a conversation with the federal delegation today. Sam, go ahead.
You talked
So what we do is we don't take any idea off the table. We are standing up in our administration an economic task force to begin to look seriously for the months ahead at how it is that we can provide targeted relief. Obviously, the legislature weighed that and determined that that was not the best way to go. But there are a lot of alternatives that we can consider, and some of them there are. In this kind of a situation, you look at 10 options, 10 good options, and you choose which is the best. So we're going to be looking for the best options that provide for financial stability for our state and at the same time provide for targeted relief for businesses.
By the time the decision is made, though, are you concerned that those businesses will no longer exist?
We make decisions every hour, Sam, about what we're going to do for individuals and for businesses and for organizations across the state. This state government is moving in rapid speed, just like the federal government is, and we're pleased with the progress that is being made, and we are seriously concerned about every single small business in the state, and we're going to make decisions as rapidly as possible as we can to help them out. You want to do?
Go ahead and open it up to the phone. If you'd be able to state your name and your outlet, and then proceed with your question.
Hey, Governor, it's Natalie. I wanted to follow up on clarification of what exactly you all are requesting from CMS. Is it an 1135 like Florida, Washington have received? And if so, that waiver does not actually proceed to the uninsured.
I heard almost all that question, Natalie. That if so, that question that.
Our conversations with CMS and what we're doing for the uninsured.
The question is, what are we doing with regard to conversations with CMS and the uninsured? So we are in the process of talking with and asking for some clarity so that we can make a request for a waiver that would allow us to use Medicaid dollars to serve the uninsured population for treatment around COVID-19. It would be targeted treatment for the uninsured that's specifically tied to this particular disease, and we're in the middle of that conversation right now. We're trying to get clearance and guidance from them so that we can make the appropriate request.
Have you all applied for any kind of waiver with that, or do you know the name of the program or waiver you all are seeking?
Yeah, if I had the TennCare director up here, we could get that detail, but I don't know the name of the waiver program associated with. I just know that is the conversation with CMS to accomplish that for the uninsured in our state.
Thank you.
Just a minute. Let's keep on the. We'll get back to the room in a second.
Any others on the phone?
Governor, it's Kim. My question is about last night, lawmakers failed to pass a bill that would make it easier for local officials to meet electronically rather than in person. I'm curious what has been your response and what legislative leaders in your administration is planning to do to maybe help out local governments right now who are counting on that bill to make it through the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so the challenge there is to provide for local jurisdictions, local counties and local municipalities to meet and to govern, to do so in a way that that provides open government, which is incredibly important. We need to be able to balance that, and not balance, we need to provide open government and at the same time provide logistics for these governments to meet in the midst of this crisis so they don't gather together in groups that create a public health hazard. We are currently working with the Attorney General's office, with the Comptroller's office, through our office to try and determine a way that we can construct an executive order that will accomplish all of that. And when we feel comfortable that all three of those pieces are accomplished, then we think we're going to be able to give some guidance and opportunity for local governments to meet in the midst of the crisis.
Would that be like an extension of what you did on the
It would be similar in that the Board of Parole is a little bit different in the requirements around the open government there, but it would be similar. We're looking exactly at how we uphold that requirement and obligation we have for open government and allow these folks to meet at the same time.
Thank you.
You talked yesterday about using some of the closed rural hospitals. Are you making any progress on getting any hospitals reopened that recently closed?
Well, the executive order that we issued yesterday actually changes the regulatory rules around hospital beds and which beds can be utilized. So once we've signed that executive order, then we have access to additional hospital beds as a result of the loosening of those restrictions. And some of those may come in these rural hospitals. So yes, we're in the process of assessing where those beds are and can we utilize those. As I reported yesterday, we have about double the capacity of available licensed beds in this state than what we're currently using. It's actually over double capacity. They're not all staffed. In fact, the majority of the excess capacity is not staffed for obvious reasons, and that's a challenge that we will be meeting in the days ahead. But the executive order yesterday actually addressed that too, restricted regulations on healthcare providers so we can improve the number that will be available to staff those open beds. So there's an all-out effort to find beds and equipment and healthcare workers, and we're encouraged on all those fronts.
Let's go back here.
There's a lot of downtown business owners that are questioning why there hasn't been a state mandate to shut down other restaurants and bars. You see that in our future, or why is it not done yet?
Yeah, so I addressed a little bit of that earlier, but I'll put it differently. Mandating the closure of a business, it means mandating the elimination of a paycheck for hardworking Tennesseans who have families and obligations to meet. It's a very serious thing to mandate the closure of a business. We also have a very serious disease that is potentially affecting the lives of Tennesseans, and there's a tremendous balance in mandating the elimination of paychecks and mandating behavior to minimize the spread of this disease. That is why that is not an easy decision, and why we will take it day at a time moving forward, because we want to have that right balance, and that's why we have not mandated closures of businesses to date.
Do we have any questions for the leadership before we wrap up today?
I'm a little bit confused at how we suddenly went from a week ago not recognizing that there was a reason for a temporary recess. You guys talked about the tornado, but last Thursday said that it was important to keep maintaining business as usual. But then suddenly on Sunday, it sounds like there was a meeting off-site, possibly at the governor's residence, that expedited this 5-day plan. Can the leadership talk about that at all?
I'll make one comment, and I'll let you speak to it. One of the things I've found in the last 2 weeks is that things change daily, and that what we knew today is not what we will know tomorrow, and that the decisions that we make this week may easily be different than the decisions that we make next week. I'll say that for myself and for changes that we have advocated for along the way, but I'll let speakers address.
Thank you, Governor. Joel, as we kind of had this question from you, I think almost every single day this week, the response doesn't change. So we've been looking to reassess and monitor the situation on a daily basis, sometime hourly basis, and you make the decision that you do at that point in time that you think's best to continue. As you know, we have said that time and time again. On Friday, we worked with the Lieutenant Governor's office about with the interns, about people who are over the age of 60, and we continue to evaluate the situation as it's evolved. And it's evolved even since Sunday, since last week, since Monday this week. And so we will continue to assess and continue to go forth. We wanted to make sure that we fulfilled our constitutional duty as well. And so one of the things that we talked about was about making sure that we could pass a balanced, conservative budget that will allow us the opportunity, in case something happens, we don't get back in June, to fulfill our duty until we can get back, so that the state of Tennessee can continue to move forward, and allowing the governor to have the capability within the budget to protect Tennesseans, their communities, and do what he feels like he needs to do as he monitors and assesses the situation.
Let's let Governor or Lieutenant Governor McNally answer the question.
I'll be real brief. We have to maintain flexibility. As Speaker Sexton said, the decisions we make today, we find that we have to alter tomorrow, and we have to be flexible. Originally, there were just a few cases, and gradually that increased, and as it increased, we increased our ability to close earlier. And first we started letting off the interns and people that had pre-existing conditions or were elderly, and we kind of moved down the line there. But thank you.
Final question, Sergio.
So what will happen with the, let's say, employees during this recess? Are you going to be able to work from home? Are you going to still get paid? Like, what's going to be the future for them?
I can only speak for the Senate side, and we intend for them to work from at home, to use their iPads to access email, to keep up with constituent requests, and to refer people if they want to meet, say, to ask them to just give me a call at home, and I'll be available most of the time at home. But I'll let Speaker Sexton let you know what they're doing on the House side. And they will be paid. It will be work from home pay.
Let me just reiterate, as we've gone through this process from whatever day you want to start till now, we have been in constant communication with the governor, with his administration, with the lieutenant governor, and our House leadership and Senate leadership on how to progress as we move forward. It's been a wonderful experience to be working with someone like the lieutenant governor, trying to make the best decisions that we can make as a General Assembly as we move forward. The decision that we've made is in conjunction with what the Senate has made as far as allowing the employees to work from home as we continue to go from that scenario. And we will continue making those decisions as we go forward. At the end of the day, we are working in unison with one another and making those decisions jointly as we go forward. And we will continue to do that as we move forward, as well as continuing to provide the leadership that the governor needs of us, or the opinions, and supporting him in anything that he does to protect the citizens of the state of Tennessee.
Governor, do you want to conclude, and then we'll have to adjourn?
Did you have another comment?
I did want to mention one thing. Tennessee and the United States and all the countries throughout the world are at war with this virus, and the people on the front line this time are the healthcare workers and people involved in public safety. And please keep them in mind as we go forward, and certainly their prayers for them and anything you can do to help their families, whether it's helping with taking one of the children while the healthcare workers at work, just anything you can do to help. But thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you again for all being here. I want Tennesseans to know that those of us on this stage, along with folks all across this state, are seeking wisdom and discernment about very difficult decisions that impact the people of Tennessee. And we also encourage every Tennessean to do the same. We do know that we will get through this. We do know that we will move so in a way that protects our citizens and that mitigates the impacts on them to the degree that is possible for us. But that really is up to Tennesseans, and we encourage you to be a part of that. We encourage you to pray for your neighbors who lose their jobs, who are in a very difficult financial position, or who are sick, or who in the future may lose a loved one, and to pray for your leaders who do seek that wisdom and discernment that decisions will be made that will be in the best interest of all Tennesseans. We will resume on Monday with with communications more around the disease itself and what our state is doing through our Departments of Health and Human Services and Labor and Workforce to provide an environment that is attacking this COVID-19 disease. But we will close our comments today for now. Thank you very much for being here.